Yeah, it's still loading.
Okay. I'm ready when you're ready. I'll wait for your cue. And like I said, I might pause
Okay.
to make sure.
Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another conversation on Safe Space. I'm your host, Sharice Munoz, and our special guest is Dr. Valise Davis. I always want you to keep in mind, Safe Space is a conversational panel that is intended to be free of judgment, free of harassment, and free of emotional harm. We ask that you keep an open mind and be receptive to different perspectives and be okay with possibly being uncomfortable. In our conversation this evening, we are going to talk about reflections of teacher leadership. But first, we are going to start with a self introduction from Dr. Davis. So, Dr. Davis, please go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Well, certainly. So I am a former high school math teacher, a former K-12 administrator, former director in higher ed, and now I am an instructional specialist here in the greater Houston area in Texas. And I am the owner of the Style of Leadership, which is a company that helps. Oh, would you like me to continue or I'm good? Which is a company that
Yes, yes, definitely.
which is a company that helps teachers become instructional powerhouses without all the burnout, in summary. So,
Okay. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. How long have you been doing this?
so officially, we have been doing this. My husband and I do this. We started in April when we got our fresh certificate of formation, but we really had already sparked this idea back in last fall. So we're really excited about how it's taken shape.
Oh, okay, great. And again, my viewers, we are lagging. We are having technical difficulties, but we are definitely going to continue with our conversation this evening. So, thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for joining me on a conversation of safe space. I really appreciate you being open to dialoguing about teacher leadership. Currently, I'm finishing up my last quarter at DePaul University, and we have been discussing leadership. What does that mean? What does it mean to us as future coaches? And what does it mean to the educators that we will be supporting? And everyone has different opinions about how to address different types of educators and how do you build relationships with those different personalities. So I would like to first start off with, what do you think is important in building relationships with those reluctant teachers?
Well, the way I approach it, and I feel like I've had a lot of success. I really probably can count on a hand how many times people. I mean, you're always going to have someone go against the grain, but to be honest, I build a relationship like I would with anyone else. I believe it's important we have a shared vision about your personal growth. I want to learn that your attitudes towards teaching and learning. I'm not stepping in to just tell you what to do because all strategies that work for some don't work for others. So I want to know your personality. Let's talk about how we can have that relate to the students as well. We can put it together, your style, go and mix it with where the students are coming from, right? And have a shared vision about your growth as a teacher. So I've never just went in and said, this is what you need to do. I always sit down with teachers and say, okay, let's talk about where your strengths lie. You tell me, you verbalize that to me. Let's talk about what you want to improve on. Let's look at some data from last year, right? Your teacher evaluation data, your student data. Let's look at that. Let's have an evidence-based approach to this, but also talk about what you feel comfortable with doing. There are so many different strategies you can use to grow students more than a year within a year. So you don't have to box people in, right? There's so many things. So I think the main thing is having a shared vision about, where they want to go going forward and looking at data. I think that's the main thing. And being a servant, I feel like when you are an instructional coach, you're not supposed to do the work for the teacher. You are setting up parameters for them to be successful, right? The accountability is still on them. So when it's a shared vision, they're more likely and happy to do that, right? They're more excited about, okay, you're gonna let me do me. Yeah, I am, if it's gonna grow these kids. So that's how I approach it. I've had success with that. And I think people appreciate that style because you value their input. You value their feedback. So.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Davis, because around coaching and teacher support, there's such a negative connotation behind that. And, in the past, when you have coaches in your classroom, it's because teachers have been deficient in certain areas. And so now, when we talk about teacher leadership, teachers automatically think, what am I doing wrong? Everyone in the building is going to know that there's something that I can't do. I have students in front of me that I'm not servicing well. Everyone is going to see everything that I can do wrong. And now they're coming into my classroom, taking over. And I think as teacher leaders, it is so important for us to change that narrative.
I agree.
And to make coaching a support, a regular, ongoing support, not just waiting until something is wrong. It's sort of like our health, our mental health. The only time we will go to a mental, even then we don't do it, if we need some type of feedback or we need some type of help due to some type of trauma, as opposed to continuing wellness on a regular basis. And that's what we as teachers need to do. We need to come to coaches. We need to come to leadership to be proactive, not just a reaction to, well, my students, their scores, I didn't meet the scores that was expected from the district. This is what the district wanted. I did not meet those expectations. So now it is important that I receive coaching so that I can change strategies, improve on my pedagogy so that I can better service my students. And that's okay. That's okay. But I think it's important for us to say, you know what, I'm going into here. Who can I get to help me so that I can better improve myself, my understanding of teaching and learning so that I can then better service my students?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. And the way my coaching approach actually is I coach everyone. So even if, let's say, you are a teacher who's doing exceptionally well, I sit down with you and say, look, you are really awesome, but what else can you do? I had one teacher one time, she was a phenomenal ELA and science teacher. And I said, well, what else can you do? And she said, you know what? I want to integrate my subjects. That way I'm teaching both together. I said, well, you got that. And I said, well, what would you like me to do to help you? Some people need a differentiated approach. I differentiate for teachers when I coach, like people would differentiate for students, right? She said, I'm going to do some action research. I said, honey, that's called self-coaching. You let me know if you need me. I'm going to still come in and check and see if you're able to do that. And if you need any help, fine. But then I'll go to another teacher. She may be brand new and she's having trouble with classroom management. Well, you know what? Her support will be focused on that. And that's okay too, right? So if you make it where you're kind of coaching everybody, hopefully those teachers who won't feel singled out, right? And also if you're doing a mix of, just as you would do students, a whole group, small group, and individual type, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 type of coaching approach, everyone is kind of going to get what they need. No one's going to feel like singled out in a sense. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Definitely the onus is on teachers to speak up if they need extra help or not getting the help they need. And also I think coaches from the other side can make sure they find ways to reach out, right? And find ways to ensure everyone's getting what they need. One problem I find is that coaches can be spread thin and wear a lot of hats. But I think if you can get really creative, you can still provide that support, right? You can send videos. You can do drive-by PDs. I've seen that idea. That was really cool, where a coach did a drive-by whole group PD. You come in, you pick it up, you got all your instructions and everything. You got your materials, and you just go for it. I think it's just getting creative about how to help everyone. I did a poll, and it did not get a lot of feedback, but for 75% of people said that new teachers don't get the support they need. They don't get that feedback, right? And that's so important that everyone is getting the feedback they need, whether they're new teacher, veteran or not. Because I think sometimes so many expectations are put on them, but they don't get set up for success, right? The parameters, they don't get the feedback. And it's 2 observations or 1 observation, and it's you suck. And it's like, they want to leave, they're burned out.
Yes.
So we definitely have to change that perspective, that lens, as you said.
Yes. With a lot of teachers, there's like a misunderstanding as far as coaching, because teachers are not sure, are coaches or the teacher leadership, are you admin? Are you here to evaluate me? If you find that I'm doing something wrong or I need some type of improvement, are you going to go back and report it to the administration? Then will the administration then come in and tell me, okay, well, this is what you're doing wrong. We're coming to watch. It's such a, this is what you're not doing, as opposed to let's support you with what you need improving. Yes, go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you. And I understand that they have that gray area. But like when I was an assistant principal, I did it all. So I coached, I evaluated, I did 504 PBIS chair and some other things. I did discipline. So I understand exactly what you mean. But let me tell you how you can combat that. It's your approach. I promise you, it's all your approach. If you approach it, my angle, my leadership style is servant leadership. And the first thing I will say to a teacher is, I am here to work alongside you. I am here to support you. I want your input and your feedback for me to help you. When you shift that and make them accountable, because when you go in telling them what to do, right? It's not, they're going to combat that. Well, here, there's a way that you can serve the teacher and the students and still get the results you want, right? And you have, and it's the conversations you have. What are your strengths? Let's play to your strengths. What else do you want to learn? This is what your data says. So let's not neglect the data, but you can get there. I think it's just your leadership approach. I've always had success with that approach. I've never changed it, because I think people understand when I come in that I'm fair. I'm firm, but I'm about the students. I want to help you because you're going to help the students, but we're all doing this for students first and foremost, right? So I still think it's all in your approach, but you're right. You have to shift that narrative as the instructional coach, whether you are admin or considered admin or not, and let's be honest, some things are just above your pay grade. So if you are an instructional coach and you see some things that are just wrong, call me a telltale if you want to. But if it's just purely plain wrong and the kids, it's having a super adverse effect on the students, then that's above my pay grade and someone else needs to step in, right? So it is what it is. We are about the students first and foremost, But of course, making sure you build trust with those teachers, right? And giving them a fair chance. Like I said, set them up for success. Give them the parameters to be successful, the feedback. Don't go, and tell on a teacher that you haven't really supported much, right? Or say, well, she's not doing this, he's not doing this, and he's not doing that. But what have you done? To me, you can only be comfortable with doing things like that to say, look, I've tried everything I could. We have an action, the steps. We had a shared vision about where to grow. the teacher just refuses to do, that's out of your hands. It's different if you haven't tried to help sincerely, right? And if their intentions are good, you can work with them. But if it's a whole nother story, that's a different thing.
Right. Definitely. And I think it's so important to allow educators to have the autonomy to say what they think they need to be improved on, as opposed to going into their classroom and telling them. And it is definitely about building relationships and personalities and understanding how to approach individuals in certain ways. We think that only happens with students. This is how, we need to, have these icebreakers with students to get to learn who they are. But that's very important with educators also. That's important with humans, period. How can I tell you or get you to do what I think is going to help you or be supportive of you if I don't know you? I can't just come into your space and tell you what I think you need to do.
Absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, it's about autonomy. Autonomy does not mean that you're taking away from curriculum. Autonomy does not mean that you're not teaching tier 1. Autonomy means you will recognize that teacher as a human being, just as you recognize your students as human beings, right? If we are going to be culturally responsive to our students and care about their background and make sure that we're teaching them to them and appealing to them, you have to do the same for the teachers that you serve. You cannot neglect that they are human beings, that they bring a personality to the table. And I've seen teachers use the same strategy and it looks totally different, but you know what? It works for them and it works for the students they serve. So that's why I think the shared vision is so important. And sometimes when people say, look, I don't know, say, you know what, just try. Just try. I prompt, just give it a shot. And if you don't like it, let's tweak it. But like you said, allowing them to be themselves, have that input. And if they're getting results, let it go, right? Like if they're getting results and this is the way it's working, let it go. But yes, you have to appeal to the person, the teacher as an individual, get to know their learning style, their attitudes towards learning, their philosophy of education, and work from there, right? Looking at data. How do your attitudes, your student data, your past data, and let's move, how can we move forward, right? I think you pretty much will always win with that. You'll have a few that still will be whatever, but you will pretty much, you'll pretty much win with teachers and win with students in that aspect.
Yes. And that's very important. And I think as teacher leaders, we have to understand that it's better to focus on those that are willing to modify some of their strategies. I think we like to put so much effort on the reluctant teacher as opposed to saying, okay, I have a teacher who's not really sure about me being a coach or not really sure about the coaching, where we can go about it. And then those reluctant teachers will then possibly see from others that we have connected with that, you know what, I did learn some strategies. She came into my space. She was very professional. She was cordial and she was polite. She allowed us to collaborate. It wasn't a dictatorship. She asked me, what do I want to do? How do I want to go about it? As opposed to, you're reluctant. This is what you're going to do. And I'm going to change your mind about me. No, just allow them to say, you know what? I'm going to try this, not going into their space saying, oh, you're going to like me and we're going to try that. No,
right,
that's what we don't need to do.
I promise you just hit the nail on the head. I just wanted to say, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it's like differentiating for a kid who doesn't want the teachers teaching to them in a small group. You know what? You're going to peer tutor. That is support for that teacher, right? Get them, do a peer observation, assign a peer mentor. that will kind of ease some of that as well. That's exactly right. And it's just like students who like to learn more from their peers. Sometimes teachers don't want to learn, you'll be there, but you can say, you know what, would you like to collaborate with so-and-so? Just like you said, that is still coaching. That is still support. You just differentiate it for that personality, their learning style. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because people have to be creative, right? We have to be creative in teaching. We have to be creative about support. I'm so glad you mentioned
that. Yeah, we definitely have to think outside. When it comes to education, whether it's with adults, teachers, or students, you have to think outside the box. You cannot assume that everyone is going to be receptive to certain information in a certain way. We have to just be willing and open ourselves to accepting them where they are and making sure that we build that bridge from what they know to where we think they should go or where they think they should go, as opposed to building up that wall of this is what you should do, this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do. You're going to do exactly what I tell you to do, and you're going to be creative about it just the way I tell you to do it.
Right. And that's going back to like we have been discussing, the human being, the dynamics at play, right? We are social beings, right? We learn best in social, ways. And some of us may be a little bit more introvert, but we just kind of want to work with that one peer, and that's okay. As long as you're learning and as long as the students are growing, that is fine. So I'm so glad that we, honed in on this, and, just being consistent with that, and never forgetting what it's like to be a teacher, right? Never forgetting that as well.
Definitely, because I think, in the past I have, had my skepticism about, I was like, okay, they're not in the classroom anymore. They don't understand, there's all these pressures, these are all the tasks that I have, all these responsibilities. These are the deadlines that I have to meet. They no longer have students. And so I have students, and now I have to go through the coaching and the teaching, and it starts to become overwhelming. And we also have to allow a time for teachers to have their, I don't want to say breakdowns, I like to call them their breakthroughs. Okay. Allow them mental space to say, you know what, I need a break. I need to step away for a moment. I need to step away from this collaboration to just give me a moment to breathe, or just sit there with them. You know what? We have this. Just step back, take a deep breath. I'm here to support, because we don't want people to see that we're vulnerable. We don't want anyone to see, we always want, and especially teachers, I have this together. I'm a teacher. I know everything. I can do everything right. And that's not the case. And we have to allow ourselves to say it's okay that it's not.
You're absolutely right. And I agree with you about giving teachers their space, right? Sometimes we can drill, and I think not realize it, right? The emails, the this, the that, whatever else is going on in addition to you trying to plan your lessons. And then sometimes we're taking your planning period to discuss something else. And then you really want to be in a classroom trying to, do your lesson. And then you got a PLC next day, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think the more space we can give teachers, the more we value their time, I think they would be more productive. I do. And I think when we do call them in for a meeting or for this and that, it needs to be short, to the point, give them what they need and go on. All the extra, I think less is more. I personally believe less is more. And that's why I'm big on no burnout. I think less is more. I think sometimes we overcomplicate teaching and learning way too much. Right. And that's what I teach when I coach someone, and in our program, it's all about the simplification of teaching and learning. Okay. It's a couple things. It's data usage. It's selecting strategies. It's my implementation and monitoring, and you do it again. That is it. But I think the jargon, the extra, and all the programs, it just gets overwhelming. And so if we can just kind of, like you said, I totally agree with you. Can we give them some space? Let them digest stuff. Let them think, get it together, because they need it. We're throwing too much backup, right? Just give them their breathing room. I totally agree with you.
And yeah, and we have so many veteran teachers that, sometimes they're more reluctant because they've been there, done that, sitting through the 2-hour PDs just to hear, this is what the data says, this is what the district says, this is what the state is saying. And we definitely have to understand that we are piling on too much. We need to chunk it up. The information that's being provided, put it in a video maybe, because reading all the information or sitting through the PDs, it can be it is overwhelming. Just like the students, we are not going to stand in front of the students talking for 30, 45 minutes. We have to give that 10, 15 minute max mini lesson, step out the way and let them do what they do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, you are so speaking my language. And that's why I said drive-by PDs will be great for whole group, right? You helping everybody. Upload it like in a Google Drive. Like you said, can we just have a video? Like, we had to call a meeting to talk about this. Housekeeping can be done on a handout, a sheet. Hold teachers accountable for reading it. But they really want their time. That is really what I think teachers want more than anything, is their time. Right? Their time to plan, their time to teach, their time to critically think about how they want to move their lessons. Great planning takes time. And if we're always taking that time away, it causes burnout.
Yes, definitely. One question that I have for you, Dr. Davis, how do you solidify the professional relationships with those teachers? How do you say, we've actually been discussing it, but I want to hear more in your terms. When you start at the beginning of the year, how are you going about planning those collaborations with your educators? Whether it's the educator that needs the additional support or whether it's the proactive educator.
Well, absolutely. So I have a system of coaching cycles. Like I said, I coach everyone. All right. And it's, as I mentioned, just like for students, it's broken into a whole group, small group, and it's broken into individual. That whole group PD, we're going to do something once a month. Like I said, it may be, go to the multi-purpose room, grab your packet. It has all your materials. It has your instructions. I'm going to send you a video. See if you can incorporate that a few times this month. How do you like it? Right? We can do that once a month. That's whole group. Right? And then your small group is your PLCs. However often that is that you meet, maybe depending on what school level you are, you may meet every week, every other week, or once a month. But in those PLCs, that's our small group support, right? Most of the time we're with, they may be horizontal teams, right? Or they may be vertical teams. Horizontal teams meaning same grade level, vertical teams meaning, across grade levels like 6th, 7th, 8th grade math, right? So those are your smaller groups, the people that the teachers want to be with, right? They want to be with their kind. And then you can go a little deeper into their subject, their grade level, right? That's when you have that data chat about how the teachers are how the students are progressing on standards and what strategies can you all create synergy around to go forward with it. It's them. They're the ones accountable. When they have the shared vision, they're more likely to do it, right? And the data speaks for itself, right? You can't argue with numbers. So, and it's not an I got you. It's just, these are the numbers. How do we move the kids? Let's talk about that. And then you have that individual coaching cycle where we differentiate it even more, right? So they're getting help in a whole group way, small group way, And then individual, as you just mentioned, some teachers you don't have to spend a lot of time with. And that's okay. Some teachers you might need to spend a little bit more time with, but remember, we don't do the work for them. They have to still be accountable. We set them up for success. We give them the parameters to be successful. Yes, I'll come in here and co-teach with you, right? Once or twice. But from then we need to talk about how that's going so that you can run this classroom on your own, because that's the ultimate goal, right? Yes, I'll help you plan your station rotation or your centers. Let's do that. I'll help you with it. But after that, we have to have the cognitive shift where you have the self-efficacy to do that on your own. So there may be another teacher, as I mentioned, the one who says, I just want to integrate my subjects because she's rocking and rolling. Well, by all means, do that. That is an action research plan of support, right? That's your self-coaching action research. And then I do that, but I'm going to check in with you still. I'm still going to do walkthroughs. I'm going to see everyone. And it's not because of I got you. It's I want to see you winning. Show me your wins, and let's see if you want to do a PD, right? I want to build leadership capacity. I want teachers to deliver PD instead of me. They get tired of seeing Let build leadership capacity among your teachers. Let them facilitate their PLCs. You don't have to be at every PLC. There's a teacher there that can facilitate that. When they feel that they are the ones really making those gains and those moves, and they, like you said, they have the space. That, oh my God, they're happy. They become happy and energized. And I guess, and I'm reflecting so much on
exactly.
We worked well.
Yeah, because sometimes we think coaching is exclusive to teachers that need to be improved. You come into their classroom, you sit down, and you have all of these, journals and articles. When a lot of time the coaching is coming together with a group of teachers. Everyone is providing, their expertise. This is what I do well. This is what I do well. Okay, so let's see who needs support in those particular areas. And so now we're going to work together. We're going to start with the peer building aspect of coaching, as opposed to just, I'm the coach, so this is what I'm going to help you do this, help you do. No, it is a collaborative effort that we're going to help each other. We're going to provide each other with the agency of knowing that this is what I'm going to do to help my colleague because they need my support.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I really think, and I say this so much, but teaching and learning, no matter if it's adult or student, it's the same. I'll never forget, because I'm big on cooperative learning. So I'll never forget, and I'm going to tell the truth. I taught a math lesson. There was a student, and I used to tell my students who were high, they would be bored. I said, well, if you can teach my lesson, then you don't have to take the quiz, right? If you can teach this to this class and do it well, I'll exempt you from our little quiz that we have, And one of them said, okay, bet, So I gave them my lesson plans and everything, I was, going to give them, set them up for success. I'm going to tell you what, I sat there and watched that lesson. They mimicked me, modeled me, did exactly me. Okay, you work in your groups. But let me tell you, that child taught that lesson better than me. I was taking notes. And I said, you know what? They have their own language, okay? I said, I never thought about saying, I was teaching quadratics. I want to say it was finding the vertices of a quadratic. But the way he said it, you could see the light bulb pop off, and we get very formal, right? And we've been to school. And I'm like, that's all I had to say. And so I think it's the same way with teachers. They have, when you become, an administrator, sometimes you're thinking a certain way and all that. These teachers will talk to each other in a language, that they can help each other with. I know exactly what I need to help her with. I got it. I've seen that happen so many times. And that's why I say it's so important that they're collaborating in those PLCs and talking about being stronger. Not, I got you. You can't grow your kids. It's, this is a strategy I'm using. This is how I'm using it. let's try this as a team to create synergy. Because John Hattie did a study about.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add, John Hattie.
No. Go ahead. I want to hear about this study.
I'm a big fan of John Hattie's visible learning, and he talks about how there's higher variability in teacher effectiveness within one school than there is across an entire school district. And when you think about that, why is that the case? Okay. Why do you have these pockets of effectiveness and not? To me, that's a clear indicator that we're not collaborating in meaningful ways, right? If we have the model of someone effective at our school, why isn't that, well, why does that not transcend the whole school? So that's why teacher collaboration and small PLC groups are so important, because the power of collaborative expertise is real. I just can't explain how it grows students, and how when you look at data and you're talking to your teachers about your data, it exponentially grows kids. It's so important. So,
and I think the word that we have to say here, control. We have to let go of control. As teachers, we have to let go of control and allow our students, like you said, the student took the wheel and was able to teach their peers. As coaches, we have to say, I'm going to let go of control and allow these educators to support each other without me, being the dictator and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do because this is what the studies say. This is what the cases say. I have documentation that says this is the percent. We have to let go and allow them to do what they know best, how they know best. And we have to allow the other teachers who have certain expertise to all just come together and share that. But we have to let go of control. And I know for myself, it took a couple years, a few years as an educator to say that it was okay to let go of control, let go and allow my students to do what they do. Because we want to hold, I'm going to control everything. And that's not always going to be successful for students and ourselves.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna tell you the truth. I was taught direct instruction, math, clear, concise, direct instruction, whole hour. At the end, you may be able to help with each other at the end. But I am teaching, and you're gonna do these problems with me. And you know what? I was tired when I got home, so I said, you know what? There has to be a better way. How can I multiply myself in the classroom? The best way to do that is when you break those kids up, they become mini teachers, like little teachers. They become you. And you're going to do so much more in those 10, 15 minutes of you talking. They're going to do way more than that because you multiplied the teaching capacity in your room. When I got that down and when I got station rotations down, I was done. I was like, oh yeah, this is the way to teach, because you get so much more done in such a shorter time. You're not tired. They the ones tired because their brains have been working all day, which is what you want, right? And all that time I've been teaching them what to think and how to think instead of them thinking for themselves, not realizing they see things a little differently and we can arrive at the same answer, right? I can see your thought process through your work. And so, or your accountable talk, right? I'm going around, I'm listening to you, I'm giving you actionable feedback. I hear what you're saying. When I started teaching like that, I was like, this is the way to go. It just is. They do so much more. And that's why it's important.
Yeah, we're creating them we're helping them to become problem solvers and critical thinkers. And that's the same way with educators. We're allowing them the opportunity to say, you know what, beforehand, I'm not strong on this topic. I'm not strong with this strategy. Let me seek out the support that I need, as opposed to, okay, I know I don't know this, but I'm going to continue with doing it anyway and let the chips fall where they may. And that's what we have to change. We have to be very intentional about the output that we want and how do we want to go about it. Because at the end of the day, it is important that our students are successful. And in order for the students to be successful, we have to be open-minded educators to say that, you know what, it's okay that I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to find the support and they're going to show me exactly how I can go about changing up my strategies so that I can present it to a way that the students will be able to understand and then take it themselves and have their meaning put to it so that then they can better understand it. And then they're thinking about their learning. They're being more cognitively aware as to what is going on in the classroom, the problems that's being presented to me, as opposed to just, I have this algorithm, I'm going to solve it, and not understanding anything because the teacher really doesn't understand anything. So I'm just going to do what I know best, even if that's not making you a critical thinker, that's not making you a problem solver.
You know, I think you mentioned something that was really important. You know, I think it goes back to the control, right? We're comfortable with where we are and we don't want to take calculated risks, right? We are like, no, that's too risky. You know, as you said, with control. And I'd rather just go back to business as usual. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Not knowing that you could be working a lot less when you do relinquish that control. And I think the best way to approach someone who doesn't want to relinquish control is you have to do it gradually. It has to be super chunked. Like, it's not, oh, we're doing stations tomorrow. Absolutely not. It's take this one question that you would normally ask in whole group and say, raise your hand. Say, turn to your partner and work this problem. Just do it twice a week. You know, if you started off small, the teacher gets the feel for how that feels. And then the students get a feel for how that feels, right? Because it is a feeling you have to get kind of used to. And the best way, I think, is to do it for the teacher too, is start with like a team building strategy, right? Start with something small, like coming up from a weekend and to build a culture of inclusivity in your class and say, you know, after they've done their bell work or whatever, say, turn to your partner and talk about what you did this weekend, right? Give them about 3 minutes or whatever, right? Start teaching your lesson. You do a couple problems or whatever it is that you're doing. Then you say, then this question says, you know, whatever your prompt is, you say, okay, now turn to your partner and talk about that. So that way they get like practice with it with something fun first. And then when you add content to it, it's kind of natural. But you would have to ease someone in. I had to ease myself in. I did a lot of self-coaching. I didn't really have a coach ever. Sad, but true. I did lots and lots of self-coaching, and I had to ease myself into it. And like I said, once you chunk it that way, I think they digest it a little better.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Davis. You have provided so much information that is going to be definitely helpful, not just to teacher leaders, but to teachers also. You know, we have to be receptive and starting to open up more to teacher leadership. In closing, I would like for you to give us a little bit more of what you think is important that teacher leaders need to take away from this conversation. And then I would like for you to put information about your program in the chat so that other educators can have access to you and your program.
I would say the biggest takeaway to teacher leaders is, first of all, if you're not confident and don't think you can coach someone, yes, you can. Two, if you want to be a good coach, I would say make sure that you value the people you lead, their input, and ensure that you are catering to them as you would the students that you serve. If you're going to be culturally responsive to students, you should be culturally responsive to teachers as well. And I would also say plan whole group, small group, and individual PD somehow for those teachers so that you can ensure that you're setting them up for success. And that way they kind of have things to choose from, things to digest, and ensure that you're, working for them, but not doing the work for them, right? They still have to be held accountable. Just set them up for success. That's all I would say. And I'll just put my website in the chat. That's where people can find me and they can read more about what I do. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, and I think I have to put it in the comments, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me know if I did that right. Did I do it right?
Okay, it went to private chat, so let's see.
Can you just type it in for me? It's www.thestyleofleadership.com.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So it's the style of leadership. Okay.
.com. That's it.
Okay.
Very simple. It's the name of the company.
Okay. The style of leadership.com. I was trying to do a cut and paste. Okay. The style of leadership.com. So I put it in the chat. Are you able to see the chat? Okay, yes, there we go.
See it. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Davis, for being a part of Safe Space Conversations. I really appreciate you. And to my viewers, thank you so much for tuning in to our conversation. And at the end of every conversation, I always encourage you, take a moment and shine your light in the dark. Good evening.